Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes sources you send us, digs into them, and pulls out the key info so you can get up to speed fast.
And this time we're focusing specifically on material for the learner among you.
That's right. If you're curious, if you want to understand complex stuff without getting totally lost and maybe appreciate a few surprising facts along the way, this one's for you.
Today's exploration is, I have to say, pretty unusual.
It really is. We received a transcript from one of you off YouTube, but it wasn't your typical video.
No, definitely not.
It documented a supposed hypnotic protocol and the focus, predictions about the death of Pope Francis.
A very specific and, let's be honest, unconventional topic. Our aim here is just to understand what this source is actually claiming.
Exactly. Our mission is simply to lay out the information presented in this transcript, the assertions made during that session, no matter how strange they might sound. We're exploring, not endorsing.
We'll be looking carefully at the specific claims made.
And there are some really out there ones. I mean, this transcript gets into the exact timing of the Pope's death.
Which it suggests is different from the official reports.
Right. And then there are these really esoteric takes involving numerology, ancient prophecies, even non-human entities allegedly being involved.
So, yeah, definitely heading into some unexpected territory.
Okay, let's dive in. The session apparently kicks off with making contact with Pope Francis's energy, as they call it. This is supposedly on April 25th, 2025.
And right away, the setting is described as a void or a dark space.
Which is interesting in itself. What did you make of that initial perception of his state?
Well, the transcript uses this term desencarnated. It basically means his essence, his spirit, has left the physical body.
Okay, so they're perceiving him post-death.
That seems to be the premise, yes. Perceiving his energy after the physical event.
And the person under hypnosis also apparently saw many inputs around this energy.
Yeah, representing people's thoughts, the media focus, different groups interested in him.
A lot of external noise, basically. Yeah. But his own energy, described as completely neutral.
Almost detached from all that surrounding activity.
So, point one, post-death, his energy is perceived as separate, neutral, but surrounded by external influences. That's the claim.
That sums it up well. Then the transcript moves on to the timing and the condition of the Pope's death.
And this is where it gets really specific and maybe a bit jarring.
It claims that on that date, April 25th, 2025, the physical body was already dead. No vital signs.
But more than that, right? It suggests the body seemed like it had been dead for longer than reports would indicate.
Exactly. There's this mention of the body being semimomified with chemicals.
To preserve it, presumably. Make it look more recent.
That seems to be the implication, adding to this idea of a discrepancy between the reality and the perception.
Which brings us to the timeline difference.
Yes. The perceived date of death in the session was apparently a whole week before April 21st, 2025.
April 21st being the date that was supposedly reported publicly.
Correct. The transcript specifically says brain death and physical death happened a week earlier.
Wow. Okay, that's a significant gap.
It is. So a key claim here. A week between the alleged actual death and the announced death.
So then the obvious question is, why? Why the delay, according to this source?
Well, the transcript argues it wasn't just random. It says the reported date, April 21st, was chosen for Kabbalistic reasons.
Kabbalistic. Okay, so for you listening, think mystical interpretations, hidden meanings and numbers, that sort of thing.
Precisely. The idea is that these specific dates, both the supposed actual one and the announced one, had numerological weight.
To achieve what, exactly?
To, and I'm quoting loosely here, move a series of symbolisms and help along some internal plans.
Internal plans. Sounds secretive.
Very. The transcript claims these plans are so hidden that even people superficially involved wouldn't know the real purpose. An underlying orchestration.
And this is where that code comes in, right? VTK?
Yes. The transcript uses VTK instead of some censored word connected to these plans.
So VPK represents something central to this hidden agenda around the Pope's death date.
That seems to be the function of the term, yes. And it underlines the idea that these plans, the timing, it was all supposedly predetermined.
Predetermined how far?
The source goes so far as to suggest Pope Francis's whole life, his birth date, everything, was sort of designed, like he was a created character, completely unaware of this deeper script.
That's Quite a claim, a profound level of alleged manipulation.
It really is, suggesting control far beyond what we normally conceive of.
And the source then links this idea, this predetermination, to that old prophecy about the last pope.
Ah, yes. The one predicting turmoil, the fall of Rome, the end of the papacy.
Exactly. The transcript draws a line directly connecting the old Roman Empire to this VTK thing.
How so?
It describes them as like parallel realities existing in different space-time
Okay, so the Roman Empire is like a historical blueprint.
that the VTK is built upon or is recreating, but then it gets even more layered. The transcript claims there's another identical structure underneath that. So 3 simultaneous layers of the same pattern recurring.
Wow. Like a theme repeating throughout history, according to this source.
Yeah, and the analogy used is pretty interesting. It compares Roman polytheism, 12 months, festivals for gods, to the 12 apostles in the VTK structure.
Suggesting a deliberate mirroring, a recurring design.
And then the imagery takes a turn. The person under hypnosis apparently sees a huge reptile, specifically like a cobra,
A cobra. Where?
in a room located above that void where the Pope's energy was initially perceived.
Okay, that's intense. A powerful symbol, linking things to much older times.
Exactly. It connects to reptile snakes, specifically, the source says, not necessarily reptiloids, as you might hear elsewhere, and straight back to places like ancient Egypt, with cobras being so significant there.
So the implication is some kind of very ancient, long-standing influence.
Yeah, and this reptile imagery leads into how the transcript interprets the prophecy of Petrus Romanus.
That's the text often tacked on to the end of the St. Malachi prophecies, right?
The very one.
Yeah.
The interpretation here is that Petrus Romanus' time marks the destruction of the city of Seven Hills.
Rome.
Usually understood as Rome, yes.
Yeah.
And a final judgment. The transcript links this to the end of our current civilization,
Based on what?
based on the claim that our civilization is built on blood and sacrifices that are actually reptilian in origin, serpent origin.
Right. So in this view, the VTK and the Roman Empire are just masks, disguises for this underlying reptilian thing.
That's the idea, and the worship of an entity they call Malkut.
Malkut.
Yeah, described as looking like a lamb's head, but supposedly hiding a reptile underneath. The source claims this whole cycle, this reproduction, is ending now.
And that's tied to the Seven Hills.
Which are also given some Kabbalistic mystical significance again.
Okay. So given all these very unusual claims, what does the source say happens geopolitically after Pope Francis dies?
The perception reported is that various tools are being used to manipulate things. These old prophecies, for instance, are being actively leveraged
Wow.
by using the energy of people who believe in them. That belief, that energy, is apparently helping to create the next pope and keep the whole structure going.
Like belief shaping reality in a way.
Almost exactly like that, according to this source, which leads into the information about the next conclave, the election process.
What does it say about that?
It describes a kind of energetic war happening between 2 main factions, symbolized by the color red,
Okay.
and a third faction with different goals,
Yeah.
symbolized by black.
And the outcome depends on this war.
The source claims that if the black faction wins, the expected result of the conclave could be completely overturned.
Because these factions within the VTK have different interests, maybe even worship different things.
Precisely. The red faction supposedly worship that big cobra figure we mentioned,
Right.
while the black faction worships this ancient entity Malkut, linked to the Seven Hills.
So it's portrayed as a clash between different dark entities or powers.
An energetic war, yeah. The red is tied to the cobra, the serpents. The black is tied to Malkut, described as an evil force predating even Rome.
And the transcript mentions Satanism.
It does, suggesting a form associated with these entities that's considered much worse than common perceptions of Satanism.
Okay. Let's go back to the Pope's energy. Where is it located in all this?
Inside a shielded energetic zone, right in the center of the VTK structure,
Shielded. And that cobra entity.
is depicted as the guardian, the custodian of the VTK and this stored energy, forming like an energetic dome over it.
And what happens to the energy? Is it just stored?
No, the idea presented is that it's used, it gets energetically hybridized, mixed with the energy of future popes.
Hybridized. With what else?
With what the source calls reptilian energy and other diabolic entities linked back to the Roman Empire and even earlier times.
So it's like a cycle, a loop.
Exactly. Structures and energies get recycled. Things might look different on the surface. Roman gods become apostles, for instance. But the underlying power dynamic stays the same.
And this happens through, what do they call it? Energetic alchemy.
Yeah, within that central void. but it's not automatic.
What does it depend on?
The collective energy of believers, external influences, and significantly sacrifices.
Sacrifice.
The energy from sacrifices is apparently key to maintaining the structure. That's why it's built on blood, linked to the color red, the symbolism.
Pretty dark stuff.
It is. There's even a mention of a specific room inside the VTK where these entities physically appear as cobras.
Manifesting physically. Wow. Which leads us to rituals, I suppose.
Absolutely fundamental, according to the transcript. Essential for managing all this energy.
And are these new rituals or old ones?
Here's a key claim. They're basically the same rituals practiced before the Roman Empire, including blood sacrifices.
So a continuity stretching back millennia.
It draws parallels between Roman expansion and military structure and how the VTK operates. And again, mentions links to Egyptian rituals too.
So where do ordinary people fit into this picture?
Well, the claim is that a huge chunk of the population unknowingly feeds this system through their beliefs, their engagement with it all.
Just by believing, they provide energy.
That's the idea. But it also says some people consciously participate, like sect, even, disturbingly, offering family members in some way.
That's extreme. But is there a way out, according to the source?
Disconnection. Anything that disconnects you from the system, consciously or not, weakens it.
Interesting.
In public announcements, big events, they create expectation, which fuels the collective energy field, the egregore, feeding the system more.
And numerology plays a role in that, too.
A big one. Specific numbers are supposedly used like programming keys to open energetic portals. The masses' energy is the motor.
But what if you don't buy into the numbers?
Then, the source claims, it negates the impact on your personal energy. Disbelief is a shield, in a way.
So a big shift in belief could actually weaken these structures.
That's what's suggested. And the transcript even claims these structures are already weakening because they have less access to the sacrifices and energy they used to.
What about concealing death times? You mentioned that earlier.
Right. The idea is they hide the true timing to line deaths up with specific dates for these numerological portal openings.
So the official date, the code, creates a focus point.
While confusion obscures the deeper truth, the core claim remains a manipulative system run by a mix of reptilian and human entities.
And the 7 hills of Rome are central.
Energetically and strategically, yes. A persistent reptilian energy link back to Egypt across different space-time layers. Yeah, the VTK is just the most solid physical layer right now, but others are superimposed. It even mentions reincarnation, Roman emperors potentially coming back as popes.
It's a complex cosmology they're describing. So what's the potential future? Will it collapse?
The transcript suggests the VTK structure will try to hold on to power, keep deceiving people, but it is weakening lack of sacrifices, less energy.
And if it does collapse, what about that other force, Melkut?
It would disappear too, apparently. It feeds off the same energy source.
So how is it weakened fastest?
By perceiving it clearly, without fear. Fear and sacrifices are supposedly its food, so observation without fear is key.
And not participating in the rituals, though the VTK itself keeps doing them.
And the transcript is pretty blunt about those rituals, isn't it?
It calls all rituals within the VTK and Catholic Church Satanist, in nature transferring energy to these entities.
With Malkut, this embodiment of evil as the base layer.
Yes, the foundation upon which the reptilian empire is built.
Does this affect us physically? Like our DNA?
No direct impact on DNA, the source claims, but changes in human DNA can weaken their power. How else can their power be disrupted?
Individuals visiting these places like the Vatican, presumably who aren't under the global hypnotic effect, can disrupt things just by being there.
And staying away also works.
Yes, if you're not under the influence, avoiding the places also weakens the energetic draw.
The VTK as a hypnotic magnet?
Exactly. Pulling in those already programmed, that's why the location is crucial.
And the Swiss Guard.
Described as unarmed, relying on energetic protection, which paradoxically allows these parasites to operate freely within.
It also mentions energetic tunnels and hidden technology.
Yeah, tunnels connecting the VTK to other places, and advanced ET tech hidden in the libraries. Quite the claim.
Shifting perspective globally. It mentions other power structures.
Yes. A reptilian, cobra-like energy form stretching from Great Britain through Africa, but bypassing the Middle East route.
Okay. And elsewhere.
A more draconian structure linked to China, a mix of dragon and reptile in the Middle East, and purely draconian winged dragons in Latin America.
So different energetic influences in different regions.
And going back to the Pope's death, the numerology of the announcement isn't just symbolic.
No, it's functional, according to the source. Opens portals, realigns energy, reinforces that whole cyclical structure, Malkuth, Rome, VTK.
It's a key moment for energy flow, basically.
Fueled by followers' energy. Like a Swiss clockwork, the transcript says, with numbers as the programming.
Is Freemasonry mentioned in relation to this?
Explicitly, the VTK is the visible part, Freemasonry is the hidden, occult, ritualistic part, both serving the same power.
And the Cobra symbol links to pharmaceuticals, too.
That connection is noted, yes.
But the core message is that humans aren't really in charge of this.
Not ultimately, no. These structures were created and are controlled by these serpent-like reptilian beings.
There's even a description of the meeting.
Yes, a visualization during the hypnosis of cobra-like reptiles meeting inside the VTK. Non-human.
And the Cobra hood is a power symbol.
Linked back to pharaohs, ancient rulers, yeah.
And the internal conflicts. The red versus black factions.
Mirroring conflicts within the old Roman Empire, apparently. Again, linking back to Egyptian serpent entities versus these Malkuth-related ones. Can you clarify Malkuth again? Worse than Satan.
That's the claim. An ancient entity combined energy of evil, sometimes shown with horns, like a worshipped calf.
So there was a convergence of these powers, Egyptian Cobra and a Roman VTK.
Historically, yes. And while both seek control and feed on negative energy, they manifest differently, Cobra versus horned entity.
How does this connect to things we see today, like, say, drug cartels being weirdly sanctified?
The source presents that as part of the same big system. Control through chaos, distraction, contradictions keep people confused, allowing the real power structure to persist underneath.
And the final, really staggering claim.
That the VTK could end world suffering instantly.
Yeah, because they supposedly have the knowledge, the hidden resources, the energy manipulation techniques.
But they don't want to. They lack human essence, compassion, and actually need human misery to survive. That's the assertion.
And then the hypnotic session ends.
Right. Wow. Well, that was certainly a deep dive into some extremely unconventional territory.
Definitely challenging material.
And it's so important to stress, again, as we wrap up, everything we've discussed comes only from the claims made in that YouTube transcript source you sent us.
Absolutely. Our goal was just to unpack and understand what was being asserted in that specific context.
Regardless of how, well, extraordinary or even unsettling those claims might be.
It's certainly a complex and unusual view of power, hidden agendas, reality itself, at least as perceived in that session.
So as you, our listener, process all this, maybe think about the implications. What if? How might our view of these alleged power structures shift if more people knew about them or consciously detached from them?
What could be the results of a widespread deprogramming, as the source might put it, from these energetic influences?
Big questions. Definitely food for thought.
They really are. Questions for your own reflection and maybe further looking into?
We'd love to hear your thoughts, too. Any questions this sparked for you? Let us know. Learning is always ongoing, and your input is valuable.
And hey, if you're interested, maybe we can tackle more related topics in future deep dives.
Definitely a possibility. Thanks for joining us on this pretty unusual exploration.